Thanks everyone for letting me come here today and talk about what we're doing at Newmont Boddington Gold. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the local Noongar people and pay respects to their elders past and present. And it is upon this land, traditional homelands, that we meet today. So thank you. Just a bit about the company. Again, we're the second largest gold mining operation or company in the world. Employ some 32,000 employees with our head office in Colorado, USA. Most interesting, I guess, for gold mining, we were the first company onto the Dow Jones Sustainability Index and have been for the last 5 years. So what that actually measures is not just your output, but also how you operate environmentally and socially as well. So we're very, very proud of that. Also on the bottom there, you can see a map of our operations, which are obviously scattered throughout the globe. A bit about the site itself. So as you know, we're pretty close to Boddington. Surrounding land use, state forests, timber production, agriculture, and of course the mining, the bauxite. So the mine commenced as an oxide operation in 1987 and went through to 2001 when that resource was exhausted and went into care and maintenance. Through that period, 2003, 2005, there's a lot of feasibility done to target what they call as a basement rock deposit, which is some 600 million tonnes. Basically, that proved to be economically viable, and in 2006 we had the approval for a 15 to 20 year mining operation. And then by the end of 2009, we finished construction, which was in excess of $3 billion. A little bit of 101 about mining. I'll go through this fairly quickly, but the operation, as you can see from those pictures, so we have two large pits and have probably around a 90 million tonnes per year mining, and have a 1-to-1 strip ratio, which basically means that half of it goes to waste, the other half is processed. So our current life of mine is 2031. Currently this year we're looking at processing 35 million tonnes through the mill. It's a very high-tech process and fairly difficult deposit to actually work at. We produce two products, so when the ore gets first crushed, it goes through what they call a float cells, and we float off a copper concentrate, and the leftover material on that then goes through a carbon and leach process where we strip the gold to produce 15 kilogram gold doré bars. Again, fairly large operation. Result, that large thing to the north is our residue disposal area. It's 1,500 hectares and will take 600 million tonnes of tailings. Also, we go through quite a bit of water. It's a water-intensive operation, so we have 36 megalitres of raw water a day, but we use all up about 80, and that's because we have a lot of efficiency programs in place. And I'll talk about the reason for that in a tick. So our 2014 outlook basically is in the range of 665 to 725,000 ounces and about 25 to 35,000 tonnes of copper. And earlier in the year we produced our 3 millionth ounce. So what the future holds? Well, we're just finalising as of this year. I think we've got the DMP Mining proposal to just be approved. But we actually went through a three-year approval process to extend the mine and push out the mine life to 2041, and that's all about, as you can see from that map, extension of both pits, increasing waste rock dumps, and building a second tailings facility on land which we purchased a couple of years ago, which people in that area will know as the Saddleback Tree Farm. Also for that expansion we also purchased the Hotham Farm from Alcoa, so all up our footprint's somewhere around 30,000 hectares, so a very, very large landowner in the southwest. Again, it's important to remember that when we started the life of mine extension, the gold price was substantially higher and pushing up around $1,800 an ounce. So what are the challenges for us? If everyone was listening to rural radio last week, you heard one of my colleagues talk about how the gold price is affecting the mine. So of course one of our biggest challenges going forward is the increasing costs of the operation and the falling gold price. So we've been preparing for this for the last 2 years, but the margins, it's getting tough out there. So again, the gold price is falling, but the costs are remaining. And one of my colleagues up here already mentioned that It's probably the second most expensive place in the world to run a mine, so a lot of costs. On top of that, we're seeing these new tax regimes. So the first one is the state government review of royalties, and again, that process started when gold was much higher. But we're looking at last year in 2013, we paid $37.5 million in royalty. And if that goes through, it'll double. So we'll add another $30 to $40 an ounce in our cost. Secondly, we're also hearing movement from the Greens about the diesel rebate. Again, next year, we're looking at using 78 million litres of fuel in the business plan. And again, that'll add a further $41 an ounce to our operating costs. On top of that, you've got state government agencies that are, struggling with resources themselves and looking at recovery programs. The DMP are looking at introducing now fees for applications, fees for disturbance, and all the rest of it. So, coupled with what else is happening in the region, it's actually, the old adage about death by 1,000 cuts. It's getting a lot harder out there. I guess the other thing that's close to my heart as the environmental manager and seeking all the approvals is the approval process. Doesn't meet the dynamic sort of operating that we do on the mine site. And again, I'm not just talking about expanding the mine site for benefit for the shareholders, but I'm talking about doing things about improving efficiencies of mining, addressing environmental concerns and environmental efficiencies. These all get caught up into the approval process and it becomes fairly drawn out. Again, there is some glimmer of hope, and I notice Alan from Department of Water out the back there. There is some excellence there with some government agencies, Department of Water, and the most important thing is that these agencies are very good at their subject matter and they're collaborative. Some of those departments, Department of Water, EPA, very good. Some of the other departments we deal with, I have to say, are fairly draconian and it's hard going. Another thing for the region, what I didn't mention before, is our power source. So we use a lot of energy. I think it's 130 megawatt per hour on the site. We get our power from Bluewater Power Station, which is an independent power provider. As you know, with the Griffin coal and supplying the independent power provider, there's a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen in that space. For a lot of people who work in the Peel region, the Bluewater Power Station supplies probably 10% of the power to the southwest region or to WA itself. So again, in the newspaper, it comes up and down with what's happening with Lanco and coal supply going into the future. The last thing is looking at secondary resources. Whether you believe in the greenhouse or not, the science is there that shows that the southwest is drying out. We use a lot of water and we have a lot of efficiencies in place, but who knows what's around the corner, and we've actually been looking at regional type, solutions for it, and we have a lot of rivers in the southwest that are saline and going to waste. We've been looking at opportunities to maybe use that water, but again, the capital costs are just way out. So without collaborative support across the southwest region, it's actually another risk to business in the region. All right, going on to local procurement. So Newmont has a policy, we call it the Think Local guideline, and it's based around sustainable and diverse local communities and businesses while achieving, which is most important, value for money and outcome for Newmont Boddington Gold. So currently we have some 160 existing contracts and about in excess of 500 vendors. So what does that look like economically? So in 2014, the 6-month operational costs, so we had 44 local, and what we mean by local are those businesses within a 50k radius of Boddington. So Boddington, Williams, Pinjarra, Dwellingup and such. So in 6 months operational, about $20 million local. Local was 71 local suppliers, and that's outside that 50-kilometre range, around $39 million. And again, outside, so national suppliers, we would have spent somewhere in excess of $375 million. So local challenges for, challenges for the local procurement. So I guess for us as a mining company, we have a number of standards that we need to meet, and they're both internal and also external government agencies, for example, the Mine Safety Act. So there's always going to be that tension between local business and vendors and a focus on our own needs around safety and reducing costs. Also, we have a lot of processes associated with maintaining minimum pre-qualifications, and you find a lot of the smaller vendors really struggle in that space. Also with the, I guess, the pressures on the gold price as well, and being a global company, we're always looking for consolidating contractors across operations, be it on the state or nationally or internationally as well. So there's also those pressures as well. And again, the question that we always ask is what happens when the mine's no longer here? Is it a sustainable business when we're no longer there? So what are the opportunities? So we've been involved with groups like the Hoth and Williams Economic Development Association. We get involved in the annual Business Expo and also working with the Peel Business Council to try and promote opportunities, let people know what's there. But these organisations are also excellent at helping small business develop contracts, tender documents, and help them succeed where they don't have the business expertise. Also, we've gone for partnerships. Recently, we've changed the contractor for the operation of the, or construction of the RDA. And the company involved wasn't big enough to take it on a whole, so we went on a joint partnership to get them across the line. As well, again, as I mentioned before, we've got the 500 vendors that are currently engaged. So we may not necessarily employ them directly, but they can support contractors that are actually working directly for us. And lastly as well, small business opportunities. The fact that we've got 278 people living locally definitely gives opportunity for people to start business to support the growing trend of local people. Okay, so quickly with the employee side. Again, we're a DIDO site, drive in, drive out. There's a lot of talk about FIFO, we're a DIDO. In September, we had some 2,000 employees. So out of that, 1,024 directly employed by Newmont. So 278 local residents, 175 females, and 56 Indigenous. And out of that, we also have on top of that 952 business partners. So twice a year we have major shutdowns, which will increase that contractor on site by another 1,000. So we're busting at the seams to house people in the region during these shutdowns. So investment in local council. At the start of the operation in 2006, there was a debate with the Shire of Boddington whether we would support local projects or pay rates, and the latter was decided, and we currently pay around $2 million in rates a year. We also gifted land to a country developer to attract people to the town. On top of that, we support 31 houses in the town of Boddington. And we also develop what they call as the Boddington Local Area Incentive Program, which we try and offset to the tune of about $20,000 a year for people who want to move in for mortgage and renting and utilities. Also, we gifted land to start a childcare, and recently been helping out to about $3,000 a year to keep that operation going due to various issues. Also on top of that, we have, I guess you'd call it philanthropic work there, and we have a social investment committee on site which actually looks at supporting other things outside what the mainstream things. So education, training, sports. We're platinum sponsors for the Bibbulmun track. We've also recently engaged Murdoch in their AMI program, which is the Australian Indigenous Mentoring Experience, and that's going through the local high schools in the area. And most recently, we also started a community reference group and targeted key people in the region to actually have those discussions about what's happening on our side and their side, and vice versa. All right, so the challenges for Live Local. Again, the land and house package didn't really work out too well. It was the simple fact that people want to live in the country, don't want to live in small blocks, so there's work there. Again, Boddington's sort of a high-risk area for loans, for housing loans, and the presence of the mine being there also drove up prices of real estate. And when you start comparing it to living other places, Mandurah and stuff, you've obviously got a bit of a disconnect there. Also, being a DIDO site, people can quite happily drive back to Pinjarra, Mandurah, Perth and all the rest of it. And also, most of us who have kids, we live for our kids, and education comes first. So when we look at moving to a place, we look at the quality of the schools, the high schools, and what other things are there available for them. So. And again, also in 2006, it was probably on our fault as well. There was a lot of promises made that we haven't been able to deliver, and we've been working and trying to work through some of those issues. Moving on to Indigenous diversity. So in 2006, we started a community partnership agreement with the Nulla Kalabuja people, and with help from SWALS. And again, that was looked at putting programs in place around education, training, employment, business development, cross-cultural awareness, and also cultural heritage. So looking at that, and we heard a bit about these numbers already, what the challenges are for the diversity. Again, it's a low demographic base. We've set ourselves a target for 10%, but in the town of Boddington, the Nulla-Kala-Budja people only represented by 1.5% and 2% across Peel. Also, there's traditional socio-economic issues, there's bias perceptions, and we all are born with implicit bias, and we're trying to deal with those. Also, lack of defined attraction, and most importantly for us, for a lot of work we've done is retention. Retention is the key here that we're struggling with. So we can get bodies on deck, but we can't hold them, and there's a lot of work going on in there. And I guess, again, the cultural immaturity off-site. So training up people to feel comfortable and to deal with diversity and, embrace inclusiveness. So again, just quickly going through our strategies I mentioned. So we've got the cross-cultural awareness training. We've got a meeting with business partners for diversity initiatives. We've got an annual target now. We've actually got the NALA Work Ready program, which is a 12-week training program. We have 2 of those a year, targeting local Indigenous people. Last time we ran it, we had 130 applicants and just graduated 8 recently. We also got a number of mentoring programs on site to deal with those cultural and implicit bias issues that are you see so commonly in society. Also, we're in partnership with Boddington High School and the Southwest Institute of Technology, trying to get pre-apprenticeships, and also looking at universities for targeting scholarships for Indigenous people. Last but not least, apologies for going over time, we also have diversity targets associated with women. We've got a target of 20%, but we're sort of flatlining at 17%. So what we're trying to do there is that we've established a steering committee on site, and also a lot of the high-profile women have started up a women's professional network. We've also introduced, as of this year, flexible work arrangements, which help out with looking after kids. And again, we've actually made everyone go through mandatory cultural inclusiveness, and it's these implicit bias, where you have 2 CVs for a job and they're exactly the same, but one's a female, one's a male, and traditionally in mining they'll go for the male. So it's all these sorts of things we're trying to cut across and dissolve from people's minds. And again, that goes in very important for our selection interview, where we're actually been training up the hiring managers and recruiters to be aware of their implicit bias. And also we have an accelerated program for women on site that are identified as talent and high profile people for the future. Again, the challenges remain, the traditional stereotypical mining guy, the hairy back miner who has 3 serves of meats on his plate. It's intimidating for a woman to come into that sort of arena when you've got all us guys grunting around the dry mess. The other thing is working after children. It's very, very difficult with rosters. We have multiple rosters and long hours that women coming back after childbirth. So we're doing a lot of work to try and help that happen. And lastly, what we've found out in our work is that women are not very good at promoting themselves. So we're doing a lot of work in that area there. So apologies, I sort of rushed towards the end and went over time, but thank you very much for the opportunity to talk.